So, how did we get movies? It's funny, we tend to think of inventions as these single eureka moments, but the truth is, the birth of cinema was way more like climbing a staircase of discovery. Each step had to be taken in the exact right order before you could even see the top. And the whole thing kicked off in a pretty weird way, with a bet. A bet about a galloping horse. Sounds totally random, right? But stick with me, because the answer to this one simple question would literally change how we see the world forever. Okay, so before anyone could even think about capturing motion, we had to get a handle on the science of how our own eyes see it. This is the bedrock, the absolute foundation for everything that's about to come. It all comes down to a phenomenon called persistence of vision. Back in 1824, a Dr. Peter Rodgett figured out this incredible quirk in our biology. Your eye actually holds on to an image for a split second after it's gone. So if you flash enough still images in a row, really, really fast, your brain gets tricked. It doesn't see a bunch of separate pictures. It seamlessly stitches them together. It creates the illusion of motion. This one biological hack is the engine that makes all of cinema possible. And of course, as soon as people figured this out, inventors jumped all over it. They created these fantastic toys, like the zoetrope. The mechanics were actually pretty simple. You'd have a series of drawings, each one just a little bit different, and you'd place them inside a spinning drum. As you peeked through these little slits on the side, that persistence of vision thing would kick in, and boom, your static drawings would turn into a looping, moving picture. It started as a cool parlor trick, but it was the first real proof that this whole concept actually worked. All right, so we could fake motion with drawings, but the next step was a massive one. How do you go from drawn illusions to capturing reality itself, second by second? The big roadblock here was early photography. I mean, back in the mid-19th century, the chemical exposure times were so slow that you had to sit perfectly still for several seconds just to get one clear photo. So trying to capture the 16 or 24 frames you'd need for just 1 second of smooth motion, it was completely impossible. The tech just wasn't fast enough. And this brings us right back to our horse. This question was a super hot debate back in the 1870s. The gallop was just too fast for the human eye to tell for sure. This argument led to a now famous challenge, which pushed a photographer named Eadweard Muybridge to solve this exact problem of high-speed photography. So, how did he pull it off? With this many cameras? That's right. He set up 24 of them, all in a row, each one rigged to a tripwire that the horse would trigger as it galloped past. And the pictures he got were the aha moment. Not only did they settle the bet once and for all, yes, all four hooves do leave the ground at the same time, but they did something way more important. They proved that a complex, high-speed movement could be broken down and captured, frame by individual frame. This was the massive technical breakthrough the world had been waiting for. Okay, so we can now capture reality frame by frame. Awesome. But a stack of photos isn't a movie, right? The next big hurdle was projection. How do you take all these frozen moments and share them with an audience as one single moving picture? At first, the experience was really personal. Thomas Edison's labs came up with the kinetoscope, which was basically this big box you'd lean over and peer into to watch a little film loop. But the real game changer came from the Lumière brothers over in France. Their invention, the cinematographer, wasn't just a viewer. It was an incredible all-in-one device, a camera, a developer, and, most importantly, a projector. For the very first time, a whole room full of people could watch a moving picture together on a big screen. And once that happened, the race was on. It all moved so fast. In 1879, Muybridge invented a projector for his horse photos. By 1890, Etienne Mouret had a camera that used flexible film. All these different innovations started to come together, and then, in 1895, the Lumière brothers opened the world's very first public cinema. The movies were officially born. But those first movies were missing a couple of things we totally take for granted today. They were silent and they were black and white. So the next phase of this whole invention story was all about engaging our other senses. Adding sound was a massive technical headache. I mean, the first attempts involved just playing a record on a phonograph next to the screen. But getting it to sync up was a nightmare, and it was never loud enough for a big theater. The real solution, which came along around the time of The Jazz Singer, was just genius. They figured out how to record the sound waves as an optical track right onto the edge of the film itself. Perfect sync every single time. And the change was just breathtakingly fast. Once the technology was there, the whole industry shifted practically overnight. Just to give you an idea, by 1930, that's only 3 years after The Jazz Singer, over 95% of Hollywood films had sound. The silent film era was over. Just like that, the talkies had taken over. The journey to color was another one of these step-by-step climbs. I mean, at first, it was this insanely expensive, painstaking process of hand-coloring every single frame of a film. Then you had some early two-color systems like Technicolor, but the colors were kind of limited and looked a bit weird. The real game changer was Technicolor. Its camera was an absolute marvel of engineering. It captured every scene on 3 separate strips of black and white film at the same time, using red, green, and blue filters. When those were all combined in the printing process, you got that rich, vibrant, full-color world that we now associate with Hollywood's golden age. So the technology is now basically complete. We've got moving pictures, we've got synchronized sound, and we've got full color. This is the moment cinema transforms from a cool scientific novelty into the most powerful entertainment machine on the entire planet. And the result was just staggering. At the absolute peak of cinema's popularity, right after World War II, 200 million people were going to the movies every single week. Think about that. It was a global cultural phenomenon unlike anything the world had ever seen before. But then, a new challenger appeared right in everyone's living room. The arrival of television had a huge, dramatic effect on people going to the movies. Suddenly, cinema wasn't the only game in town, and you can see here the number of theaters just plummeted. And yet, its impact is just undeniable, and it goes so far beyond entertainment. Motion pictures gave us the Hollywood studio system and the whole idea of celebrity culture, sure. But they also became this priceless tool for science, for education, and even for politics. A medium powerful enough to shape the values and opinions of millions of people. So, here's the crucial point to take away from all this. Each step was a necessary foundation for the one that came after it. You couldn't invent color film before you'd perfected black and white. You couldn't solve the problem of sound until you had a reliable moving picture to add it to in the first place. It was this logical, almost inevitable progression. Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. If that whole journey, from a flickering toy all the way to the silver screen, followed this inevitable path of discovery, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What series of steps are we climbing right now, and what world-changing invention is waiting for us at the top?